My name is Sam. I work at a miscellaneous goods manufacturer. The company I work for isn't very large, it's what you'd generally call a small to medium-sized enterprise. Though it's about the size of a small factory, I applied to this company straight out of college. I had a compelling reason for wanting to join this company. I've loved miscellaneous goods since my school days, and I'd often found myself stopping by stores whenever I saw one. Most of my allowance and part-time job earnings would go towards buying these items. Sam, you bought another quirky item. What is it this time? This was being sold in a corner of the store, but it's amazing. As I kept doing this, my friends started showing interest in the items I bought. I'd often buy obscure products that weren't yet popular and tell my friends about their appeal. Some of the items I bought, which were still unknown at the time, later became hits on social media and earned me the nickname Gadget Guru. I took pride in that nickname because it showed my love for these goods. Among all these products, my favorite ones were made by the manufacturer I now work for. The company's size may not be large, but its hit products are sold in over 1,000 stores nationwide, including major chain stores. They were apparently products that our president, Mr. Smith, came up with. They probably aligned with the trends of the times. The products sold out quickly as a result. I joined the company initially as a product planner, but no ideas other than Mr. Smith's ever get approved. There are plenty of great ideas proposed by other employees, but none of them get approved. Because no one has surpassed Mr. Smith's track record, even if it's unreasonable, no one dares to oppose him. Mr. Smith, what do you think of this product design? Sam, did I assign you to design? You know Emily handles that. If you have time, get back to your tasks. I'm sorry. I understand. I graduated from a specialized design school and love coming up with product ideas and designs. But no matter how much I appeal to Mr. Smith, I never get the chance. There's a veteran woman named Emily in the company who handles all the designs as per Mr. Smith's instructions. Emily is a gentle older woman with great skills. She's excellent at bringing Mr. Smith's ideas to life. I often talk with Emily during breaks, and we enjoy brainstorming design ideas together. I wish we could work together, Sam, but Mr. Smith is a bit stubborn. It's a shame you're doing picking work just because you're a guy. Even though you love to design. Yeah, but I'll keep trying so that one day we can work together. That's the spirit. I'm rooting for you. As Emily said, I'm not allowed to do any planning or design work. Instead, I focus on shipping, picking tasks, and sales support. Even though I joined as a planner and salesperson, I can't give up hope that someday I'll get a chance. Every night, I go home and work on product designs, carrying them around in my work bag. However, none of my submissions have ever been accepted, nor even looked at. Amidst these repetitive days, my friends from design school invited me to a gathering, and we met up for drinks on a weekend. I spent days working on a design, only for it to get rejected. It's disheartening after all that effort. I kept revising and resubmitting mine, and it finally got accepted. You just have to keep pushing. Such conversations were common. My friends, now at different companies, seemed busy but fulfilled. Sam, how about you? You looked so happy when you got that job offer. I'm doing all right, I guess. Unable to say that I'm not doing what I want, I down my drink to cover up. I felt out of place being there. When I got hired by a company that makes my favorite products, I was overjoyed to the point of tears. My friends here today celebrated with me when I received the job offer from my first choice company. But my current reality is far from the ideal life I had envisioned. My design ideas pile up, unseen by anyone, and remain sadly tucked away in my bag. The gap between my hopeful past self and my current situation makes me clench my fist under the table. I was just filled with frustration. One day, I was sent to a meeting with a major chain store that I had often visited privately for years. Usually, I'd feel a bit lighter on my feet, but today I felt unusually heavy. Today's meeting was to pitch a product idea from Mr. Smith. It's not that I dislike going to these meetings. On the contrary, being involved in the process of creating and pitching a product brings me joy. Previously, I had taken one of Mr. Smith's ideas to a meeting, but his taste is quite unique and often not very good. However, since it was his idea, no one could challenge or even suggest alternatives. Even when I took such products to meetings, The buyer's reactions were always negative. When I returned to the company to report this, Mr. Smith would get very upset. My product is undoubtedly great. Isn't it your fault that it didn't get accepted? With all due respect, Mr. Smith, while this product is in line with current trends, by the time it's produced and on the market, the trend might have shifted and there would be no demand. Are you saying my product is bad? Sam, since when did you think you could offer opinions to me? If you have time to come up with uncreative designs, you should work on improving your sales skills. Mr. Smith's sharp gaze only intensified at my words. Since then, he started targeting me. Even when I submitted requested documents, he wouldn't look at them and would demand revisions, finding fault with everything I did. He'd assign me unnecessary tasks, sometimes giving me more work than I could finish in a day, leading to late nights. I tried to appeal to him about this. Mr. Smith, it's really tough to finish this by the end of the day. You're just incompetent. If you can't finish it, stay late and get it done. He never listened to my pleas. Emily, the design specialist, was also concerned for me. But even she couldn't stand up to Mr. Smith. Eventually, I lost my brakes and no longer had time to talk with her. When I stepped out of the company, the fresh air was a relief. But I didn't feel optimistic about today's meeting and was quickly overcome with a sense of dread. I decided to take a shortcut through a one-way street. With fewer cars and traffic lights, and hardly any people, I thought it might help clear my head. Just then, a loud crash behind me made me turn around. A car had collided with a telephone pole. I'd never witnessed an accident before, and with no one else around, I panicked. But when I saw no one emerging from the car, I ran towards it. I couldn't see the driver's face due to the airbags, but I saw a woman slumped over in the driver's seat. I checked the back seat and found she was the only one in the car. I immediately opened the door and spoke to her. "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" She slowly raised herself and responded, "I'm okay." I blacked out while driving. Relieved that she was conscious, I sighed. I should call the police, but I can't find my phone." She seemed disoriented, likely from the accident. I quickly reassured her. "It's okay. I'll call the police. Here, have some water, I haven't opened it yet. It'll help you calm down." I handed her the water I had bought earlier, and since I was the only witness, I called the police and an ambulance from my phone. She seemed calmer by the time I finished the call and bowed deeply to me. "Thank you for helping me. My name is Natalie. I think I was sleep deprived from working on a college report. Thank you for everything. May I ask your name?" Natalie seemed to be a college student, and I couldn't just leave her alone, so I introduced myself. "I'm glad you're okay, Natalie. I'm Sam. Sorry, I need to make a quick work call while we wait for the police." She nodded emphatically and said, "That's fine." So I called the client I was supposed to meet. After explaining the situation, they understood and agreed to reschedule. Next, I called my company, and the receptionist connected me to Mr. Smith. "Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. I encountered an accident on my way to the meeting and am currently waiting for the police. I've explained the situation to the client, and they've agreed to reschedule. Given the circumstances, it might take me some time to return to the office." After explaining the situation concisely, an unexpected response came through the phone. "Sam, are you kidding me? Do you realize how much revenue this meeting could generate? Being late because of an accident you encountered? Rescheduling without permission is unacceptable. You should have ignored the accident." "But Mr. Smith, I couldn't just ignore someone in need. That's inhumane." Despite my attempt to reason, he had no intention of listening and shouted over me, "I won't tolerate lateness. You're fired." His voice was deafening, and with a loud click, the call ended abruptly. In an instant, I found myself unemployed. Fired. Staring blankly at the silent phone, I was stunned. Natalie, who had witnessed everything, approached with a worried expression. "I'm sorry, I overheard the call. It's my fault, isn't it?" Her eyes were filled with tears as she apologized. "No, it's not a problem at all. Leaving someone in need would be the real issue. I tried to smile reassuringly as I spoke to her. The conflict with Mr. Smith had been ongoing, and he had been targeting me ever since our earlier disputes. Given the situation, this might actually be a good opportunity to move on. Staying in that company wouldn't let me do what I truly wanted. Natalie seemed to think my words were just to make her feel better. I'm really sorry that you got caught up in my accident. She bowed deeply again and, after a brief moment, took out her phone to make a call. Dad, it's Natalie. I was in an accident. It seemed she was calling her parents. Not wanting to eavesdrop, I considered stepping away, but the police arrived and began their investigation. By then, Natalie had finished her call and was calmly speaking with the police. The paramedics also arrived, and while they checked on Natalie, it was confirmed she wasn't injured. The investigation went smoothly without any issues. Since they were arranging a tow truck for her car, I decided to stay with her until it arrived. Just then, several luxury cars began to pull up in front of us. A man hurriedly got out of one of the cars. Natalie, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. This gentleman helped me. The man, clearly worried, rushed over to Natalie. I was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. Unlike me, Natalie calmly explained the situation to the man. Unable to fully grasp what was happening, I stood there in shock as the man turned to me and bowed deeply. Thank you for helping Natalie. My name is. He expressed his gratitude and handed me his business card. Caught off guard, I fumbled to retrieve a business card from my bag, but in my haste, I accidentally spilled its contents all over the ground. Among the scattered items were not only the documents I was supposed to submit but also the product ideas and designs I had painstakingly worked on night after night. I'm so sorry. As I knelt to pick up the scattered papers, another hand appeared in my view. A smaller hand than mine started helping me pick up the scattered papers. It was Natalie. Is this everything? These products were designed by you? They're wonderful. She smiled as she handed me the gathered papers. With a sweet smile, she said my ideas were wonderful. The fact that she appreciated my work filled me with joy, and I couldn't help but grip the stack of papers a bit tighter. These are designs that have never been approved, let alone seen by anyone at my company. They're practically just a hobby at this point. Thank you for your kind words. It means a lot to me. I see. Natalie looked sad as I explained. Even though I tried to smile, perhaps my face showed how pathetic I felt. The products I had thought about daily might never see the light of day now that I had been fired. The thought made my chest ache. As I packed up my papers, Natalie and the man were discussing something. When I looked up, Natalie walked over to me. Sam, if you don't mind, I'd like to thank you. Do you have some time after this? I had been fired by Mr. Smith. I had no work left to do. I had plenty of time. Even though I had many problems to deal with. I didn't need any thanks, but I felt it would be rude to refuse Natalie, who was looking at me so earnestly. I don't need any thanks, but I have plenty of time, so sure. Her face lit up at my response, and I found myself smiling too. So, I decided to follow her. The place Natalie brought me to was, surprisingly, the company where I work. Or rather, my former workplace since I'd been fired. Before I could ask why we were here, Natalie confidently walked into the building. Sam, where's the meeting room? Still unable to ask her anything, I guided her to the meeting room. The employees stared at us, wondering what was going on. When we reached the meeting room, she knocked briefly and entered before a response came. I had no idea who was inside, and hurried to follow her, only to be met with an unexpected sight. Mr. Smith was there, talking to an unfamiliar man. But that wasn't all. Mr. Smith was bowing his head looking scared. The man noticed Natalie and me immediately and addressed her. Natalie, are you okay? Dad. I had the paramedics check me out and I'm fine. Thanks to Sam here. It turns out the man was Natalie's father. But I felt like I had seen him somewhere before. Where had I seen him before? As I pondered this, Natalie's father bowed his head to me. Sam, right? Thank you for helping my daughter. I'm so grateful for your kindness. This is a debt I can never fully repay. Thank you. I just did what anyone would do. I'm glad your daughter is safe. The man gave me a kind smile. Not everyone would think it was their duty. You're a kind person, Sam. I can assure you of that. Natalie nodded vigorously beside him. His words, spoken with such conviction, made my face flush with warmth. To hide my embarrassment, I took out my business card. Let me formally introduce myself. I'm Sam. I used to handle product planning and sales for miscellaneous goods at this company. I started to introduce myself, but I suddenly found myself at a loss for words. Having been fired, I no longer had the right to use the business card with this company's name on it. I considered lowering my hand holding the card, wondering if it would be disrespectful, and as I hesitated, I remained frozen in a bow. A hand on my shoulder snapped me out of my daze, and I looked up. You don't need to be so formal. I'm David Williams, Natalie's father and the president of the company you were supposed to visit today. Nice to meet you. His words brought back my memory. Yes, he was the president of the large household goods chain I was supposed to visit today. I hadn't had a conversation with him before, but I had seen him a few times. I never expected him to be the president though. When the accident happened, I remembered seeing the same company name on the business card of the man who got out of the car to help me. However, in the midst of the commotion, I hadn't fully confirmed it. I couldn't believe the president of the store I frequented was standing before me, and I stiffened. Dad, when I had an accident, Sam was the one who helped me immediately. It was a quiet street, so there were no other witnesses. But he called the police and ambulance for me while I was panicking. He even canceled his plans to visit your company to stay with me and make sure everything went smoothly. Natalie glanced at me and then continued speaking to Mr. Williams. But because of that, Sam ended up getting fired from his job. Mr. Williams listened to her words and turned towards the shrinking Mr. Smith. Getting fired for being late to a meeting because you helped someone after witnessing an accident? What a commendable company policy. Though Mr. Williams's tone was cheerful, his eyes were not smiling at all. Breaking into a cold sweat from Mr. Williams's sarcastic remark, Mr. Smith hesitantly opened his mouth to speak. No, I only reprimanded Sam for his attitude towards his work. I never intended to actually fire him. Encountering an accident and responding correctly is something I admire in an employee. That's why I entrusted the meeting with your company to him. As I thought about how quickly Mr. Smith came up with excuses, Natalie stepped forward before I could say anything. Sorry to interrupt, but I overheard you talking to Sam on the phone. You said to ignore the accident. After finishing his excuse and feeling a brief sense of relief, Mr. Smith turned his gaze towards Natalie and tensed up. However, she didn't stop. Sam told you he couldn't just ignore it. And I distinctly heard you say the word fired in response. That's how I remember it. Well, that is. Mr. Smith had no words to respond to Natalie's statement and appeared visibly uneasy. His face was not just sweaty but completely pale. Mr. Williams, who had been quietly listening, nodded slightly and turned to Mr. Smith. So, Sam is currently without a job, correct? And from what I hear, he's quite talented in product planning and design. Yet your company hasn't given him the opportunity to showcase his skills. Is that correct? Being suddenly praised for my abilities made me feel a bit uneasy. Mr. Smith, who was just as uneasy for a different reason, forced a smile. Well, we've been having him work on basic tasks as preparation for future projects. Mr. Smith's words brought back memories of all the harassment I had endured under him. Basic tasks? That was far from the truth. I joined this company because I admired its miscellaneous goods. I graduated from design school and joined this company with the intention of applying everything I learned here. I've been happy to do picking and sales support work, believing that one day I would be involved in planning and design. Gathering my courage, I addressed Mr. Smith's remarks. Sam. Mr. Smith glared at me, as if warning me not to say anything more. But I was no longer afraid. As the president of a company that had fired me, Mr. Smith was no longer someone I had to answer to. But you haven't even listened to my proposals or those of other employees. You reject our plans without even reviewing them. And every document I've submitted has been returned with corrections. For 4 years, I've been doing basic tasks. Not getting a single opportunity to work on planning or design. Is that all considered preparation? I poured out all my frustrations in one breath. I was no longer afraid of Mr. Smith. Mr. Williams, who had been watching the situation, smiled at me. Sam, I'd like to see the designs Natalie mentioned. Would that be all right? Yes, of course. In a hurry, I pulled out a stack of papers from my bag and handed them to him. Mr. Williams skimmed through them, nodding as he went. Just as Natalie said, you have a lot of talent. So, Sam, with no obstacles in your way, would you consider joining us as a product planning and design specialist? We not only source products from manufacturers but also develop our own original items. We welcome talented individuals like you. Mr. Williams extended his hand to me as he spoke. Mr. Smith, the president of my former company, seemed like he wanted to say something, but I cut him off by shaking Mr. Williams's hand. Yes. I'd be honored. And so, I began working in product planning and design at the large household goods chain managed by Mr. Williams. As I started the job, I realized that product design was more challenging and required more knowledge than I had anticipated. Understanding the differences in materials and their costs and properties was crucial. Even the same product could have different limitations depending on the manufacturing process. Without this knowledge, it was impossible to design safe and user-friendly products. A design that looked good on screen might turn out to be flawed when the sample was produced. For instance, plastics like polyethylene and acrylic resin have different strengths, transparency, and costs. You need to consider these factors in your design. This design could cause injuries to customers on the backside due to the manufacturing process. You need to modify it to avoid that. I received such feedback on my designs daily. I was learning new things that I couldn't have experienced at my previous company. It was tough, but I found it enjoyable and rewarding. Previously, my days were consumed by work with no time to spare. But now I found myself looking at products from a new perspective during shopping trips. I started to notice how things were made and what materials were used. I also began to appreciate the small details and design tweaks more often. I would jot down these observations in a notebook and use them to brainstorm new product ideas. While my life had become more work-centric, each day was filled with new discoveries, making it very enjoyable. Furthermore, my new role in product planning and design led to more opportunities to visit overseas factories. There are many things you don't notice when working solely in the US, such as the cultural and mindset differences, as well as numerous business opportunities. I even had the chance to be present when my previous company came to propose products. Mr. Smith, the president of my former company, came personally to make the proposal. We would appreciate Sam's feedback on our proposed products from a design perspective. It was an awkward moment as the person who once looked down on me was now facing me in a reversed role. Since I joined this company, the annual average sales of the products I designed have already exceeded the annual revenue of my previous company. So Mr. Smith might think he lost out on a big opportunity. He looked a bit regretful. Of course, I judged the proposal fairly, without letting personal feelings interfere. Actually, Emily informed me that since my incident, Mr. Smith has become more subdued and is now more willing to listen to others' opinions. Mr. Smith used to listen carefully to his employees' opinions when developing products that built his track record. His overconfidence led to the situation, but he might bring better products in the future, created collaboratively with his team. Not as a product created solely by Mr. Smith, but as one made collaboratively by the whole company. Sure, there were challenges, but it was a company that produced the miscellaneous goods I loved. Even though things turned out differently, I wanted to strive to do my best alongside them. In addition to work, my personal life was also flourishing. The accident led to me dating Natalie. After graduating from college, Natalie joined the same company as a sales assistant. Though we worked in different departments, we would often return home together or have dinner, making every day feel more colorful. Natalie, who had recognized and praised my design work, continued to support me. One fond memory was when I took her to a household goods store for our date, and she burst into laughter. "You really love household goods, don't you, Sam?" "I love them too, so I'll go along with you as long as you want." Natalie never criticized me, always smiling and staying by my side. Mr. Williams has been supportive both professionally and personally, and I'm fortunate to have great colleagues. At my previous company, everyone avoided associating with me since I was singled out. Now, if I run into any problems, my colleagues immediately offer help, and they give me valuable advice to get my ideas approved. Though we are all competitors, we are also teammates, and they celebrated with me when my first project was accepted. The change in my work environment has also made it enjoyable to attend gatherings with my old classmates, which used to feel uncomfortable. When they said, "Your atmosphere has changed," I ended up sharing my journey with them. "Sam, you changed jobs? You look much happier now. Sorry for the way we acted before. If anything comes up, make sure to talk to us." My friends listened earnestly to my story, appreciating my experiences and offering their support. They were angry about what happened at my previous company, and they were surprised but happy for me when I told them about my new job. I learned a lot from conversations I previously couldn't even participate in. We learned from and encouraged each other. I realized I should have talked to them sooner. They are important friends and professional rivals to me after all. They had been watching over me even when they were busy. Thanks to the support of those around me, I am now leading a fulfilling life. I've worked hard over the years. There were times I thought no one would ever appreciate my efforts. But there are always people who notice. I want to always remember this sense of gratitude. When you make positive changes in yourself, your environment and the people around you change as well. While striving for improvement every day, I am now enjoying my life to the fullest.